Welcome to the KECC podcast. JC had to step out this week for an interview, so this is Gracie Ayers, the station manager, kind of pitching hit for him. Anyway, So the topic this week, should we reintroduce everyone, or?
Nah.
You feel like if you don't know us by now, go.
Well, we could say who we got here since JC isn't with us.
Yeah.
Since he's no longer with us.
Well, at this moment.
At this moment.
But I'm Jacob, music director, and then...
I'm Braden Parks. I write the news.
I'm Taylor Berquist. I do promotions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and me, Grace Ayers,
Sweet.
the station manager. So this week we're going to talk about childhood memories, but more specifically, probably TV shows, because we're media, so that's an interesting subject for us. And the Filmed Club, which we have on campus, if you're on campus, definitely check that out. It's one of our clubs where you get to hang out and watch movies, I guess,
sounds
right?
super fun.
Yeah.
Jacob, what's your role in that?
I was a co-host. Holly Black was the person who kind of thought of the idea, and then I kind of came aboard to do some stuff as well.
Yeah, so maybe give us like a rundown
of what? Yeah, well, it's a one semester kind of an event. Once per semester. So we just have a film, and we usually relates to some kind of theme that's going on per semester. So this year for example, was kind of a compassion or kindness theme that was going on, and we thought the Mr. Rogers movie definitely fit in pretty well with that, and especially since the new one's coming out as well, it was kind of relevant anyway. And afterwards, we had like a 30-minute or so discussion that kind of just opened it up for thoughts and to kind of fit it into the Christian theme. And so next semester, I'm not really sure what it'll be yet because I won't be here sadly, but
I know. I'm thinking about joining just because, I need more things to do.
Do it.
That was ironic. But, maybe start with Taylor.
Okay.
Some shows or entertainment that you enjoyed specifically in your childhood years.
Okay. Specifically, I was very much into Nickelodeon shows personally.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Zoe 101, iCarly, just the really basic Nickelodeon shows. But then I really liked Cat Dog, which is one of my favorite cartoons. I'm trying to remember, was Good Burger on Nickelodeon?
Yes, it was.
Was it? Okay. I love me some Keenan and Kel, let me tell you.
Yeah. Who loves orange soda? Kel loves orange soda.
So how about you, Brayden?
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
It's fine.
I don't know. I kind of defined my childhood up into when I lived in Kansas City and Wichita. So I was when I moved to Wichita when I was 8, so that's young childhood and middle childhood. Or I moved to Wichita when I was 8, sorry. And so I remember in Kansas City, Zach and Cody was my bread and butter. Zach and Cody and Tom and Jerry, those are my two.
Nice.
I was never allowed to watch SpongeBob because my mom hated SpongeBob. But those were the two I remember watching. And then when I was a little bit older, so second half of elementary school, Phineas and Ferb was for sure my favorite show. Phineas and Ferb,
Yes.
I feel like corny saying it, but I feel like I got a lot of my sense of humor from Phineas and Ferb.
How are the platypus?
It's just it was really dry, and it was really, I don't know.
It's kind of self-aware.
Yeah, it's really kind of cynical at
I think
times
it was
too.
really different from a lot of kid shows at the time, at least. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you, Jacob?
Oh, man. Well, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I watched a lot. Of course, SpongeBob was definitely big for me because I grew up on pretty much that. Of course, I'll defend the first 3 seasons. Those are kind of the best ones. And then after the movie, it kind of, I don't know. I don't even know. I think that's where it gets its bad rap.
The movie came after the first 3?
Yeah, and I was actually meant to be finished after the movie, and then the creator left, and then they were Nickelodeon was oh, it's making us so much money though, and then I mean it's kind of gone up a little bit recently, but you can't get as good as it originally was, but that's what I was into. Drake and Josh, I was into that a lot. That was my thing.
That's
I love
a good
that show.
one.
Yeah.
So I grew up with public television, so none of the shows that you guys watched. My staples were Barney when I was a lot younger, Sesame Street as a really young kid, Barney when I was a lot younger. Mr. Rogers was pretty, I remember watching him, but it is early childhood TV education, so it is a lot earlier. But Sesame Street for sure, and I liked this show called Zoom. It was out of GBH Boston, and they did a lot of... It was just the best show ever. I used to pretend I was a Zoomer.
Oh, I think I might know what you're talking about.
Would it play on PBS?
It was on PBS.
So
it was made in...
PBS had some good shows.
It was made in their Boston studio, which is kind of the mecca of public broadcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's kind of... I want to work there someday, so it's fine. But they basically like the Zoomers would go out and they wouldn't leave the studio, but they would have mail-ins. I memorized the Boston zip code because of their opening song where they'd have kids mail things in, so they'd have a time where they talk about real issues that kids are facing.
Did you ever mail anything in?
I didn't, and I should have. I was pretty little. And then the show that followed that was called Fetch with Rough Ruffman, and it was the same kind of concept, but they sent them out of the studio, and so they did like adventures.
I remember Fetch.
Oh man, Fetch was Fetch was pretty great. I mean, it wasn't like Zoom. Zoom was just so iconic, but Fetch did a good job of like kind of following after. But I also watched Arthur and
Arthur's classic.
what was another one that I watched? There was a show called Between the Lines I was about reading too. So there's a lot of different. And Reading Rainbow with LeVar Burton.
All these are coming back. I forgot about
that. So those were my staples growing up. But I mean, I would say that I was a closet Disney watcher because my grandma had cable and she had this little tiny TV, and I would watch Hannah Montana and Sweet Life and probably some of Wizards of Waverly Place, if I can say that.
Controversial.
I'm probably not allowed to watch the show, but I'm just not going to tell my mom.
I wasn't allowed to.
So that's when I say I was a closet Disney Channel fan, it was because I was afraid to tell my mom that I watched Disney Channel. My grandma thought I was in there watching Animal Planet, and I was not. Sometimes I was, though. Sometimes I shook it up. It was like it was a toss up between Disney Channel and Animal Planet, but a lot of Hannah Montana for sure. And I've seen bits of SpongeBob now as an adult, and I just love Squidward. Like, I don't know why, but he's he's like the April Ludgate of Under the Sea. And I love April
because it's like as a child you can relate to SpongeBob, but as an adult you can relate to Squidward. Though I'll admit I relate to SpongeBob still in a lot of ways. So.
And then there's always the Patrick. Like someone who's a Patrick, or you are the Patrick. I don't know. Yeah. I love Patrick because he's so endearing. Like, you just like, Patrick.
Yeah, everyone's such a character. That's what I like about it.
Yeah. So I mean, there's got to be things. So I mean, I think if we could ask the next question, it would be each one of you think about what are the elements of that show that you really think brought you back time and time again. I kind of went into it with my shows already, but like what made it iconic for you? Because regardless of the show, obviously there was something that you liked about it and other people liked about it because iCarly, I don't even know how many seasons it had, but it was successful.
It was funny. iCarly was funny.
I mean, most Nick shows do pretty well for themselves in general. And it's the same with like Drake and Josh did really well.
Drake and Josh only actually had 3 seasons.
Okay.
Which is crazy. It felt like it was on forever, but we've been watching it on our floor.
Did anyone watch Boy Meets World? I still haven't seen it.
I love Boy Meets World.
Okay, so I want to watch it because I definitely watched Girl Meets World, which sounds like the most backward way to do things.
Also a fantastic show.
But I absolutely love it, and I'm really sad that they cut it short. I just really relate to the main character in Girl Meets World. Like, she's me. But yeah, so you guys can, go whoever wants to talk about that.
I mean, I think at least with like, I don't know, SpongeBob or just pretty much any show I watch, like my friends watch it too, and so it just kind of gave us some talking points at school, and like it was just like timeless stuff that I could just watch again and again, and it's like something new would pop out or just be funny, like I don't know, it's something I wouldn't notice, like that kind of thing really made, at least for those shows.
Definitely like for Phineas and Ferb, definitely the humor I thought was fun. And there's also just like a ton of episodes. But I think one of my favorite things about it is that, so me and my younger sister are 5 years apart. And so there wasn't a whole lot that we did like together, but we both really like Phineas and Ferb. And so it's just like sweet memories of watching it with my sister, like on Saturdays or in the summer, or winter break, all that.
Yeah. It does seem like, from what I've seen the show, because I've seen a little bit more of it than others, it's more like widely watched. Like, you don't have to be younger or older. You can kind of, everyone watches it equally.
I would still watch it.
Yeah.
Gotta get that Disney Plus, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys felt about that. I'm kind of annoyed, but my brother's here for it. He's like, I think it's a good idea. And I'm like, no.
I think it's a great idea.
I think every
it's
network.
Genius, truly.
Yeah, business-wise, it's genius.
Yeah,
I don't think like the way our infrastructure for media and entertainment is built, not every network can have their own.
Yeah.
Like Disney's an anomaly, but like I seen NBC was trying to make one.
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind of just at a point where it's turning into cable again. Where each thing has its own package that you buy, and you just have a collective. It is.
That it's
like I mean, it does have benefits, obviously, because it's on demand, but, like, it's interesting. Interesting point.
Yeah, and with Disney Plus, you will have a lot to choose from, but at the same time, you can't go on there and watch, your Paramount movies or whatever. stuff that's not made at Disney.
Right.
But they did partner with National Geographic, so any of those programs, which is pretty endless, is going to be on there as well. Yeah. Which is what I'm here for. But but yeah, Taylor, how about you?
Okay, so for me personally, I'm not that close to my older brother. But, like, some of my, like, favorite memories with him were, like, sitting down and watching Kenan and Kel together. Just because, like, we both just laughed so hard. And, like, it was, like, where we created, like, a lot of, like, our, like, family inside jokes from it. Yeah. And so it just, like, it's really, like, a nostalgic feeling to, like, watch it. Yeah. Personally.
I love those shows that do remind you of home. And I think even, like, Anne of Green Gables is one of those for me because, like, you couldn't watch it unless you were sick because it was so long. Oh, man. But it is, like, very homey for me. Or even, like, Mr. Rogers did Picture where he would go to a factory and he would show you how things were made. Oh, yeah. And I think other shows did this too, which was really kind of a nice progressive anomaly for kids, like educational TV. But I think it's kind of, I was like thinking about that last night and I was like, that's probably why I'm the way I am today, because I'm always asking questions and like, why is it this way and why is it made this way? And, you know, wanting to go into factories and seeing like how it's made and like,
so they did the job interesting. Then.
What?
They did their job then.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, that's the thing about Mr. Rogers, and I think different shows are structured differently, but Mr. Rogers had different elements. So he would do like a talking dialogue at the beginning, he'd do a make-believe, he would do something in his kitchen where he'd do like a craft or something, and then he'd do picture, and then, you know, he'd have interactions in between. And I think you can see that structure like interlaced in other shows. I think Sesame Street did that. And I've seen other kids shows briefly that have like different structures. I think The Wiggles does it as well.
So is Mr. Rogers like the OG of that kind of like structure?
Well, I'm biased, but he did like low-key single-handedly save public television. So in the documentary it talks about this. Okay, thanks for backing me up, because I'm like,
he did. Yeah.
What was it, 28,000 or something, or maybe more?
It was like 20 million.
20 million.
It was insane. Yeah.
Because Nixon was cutting funding for public television, and so it was like public television I think had just come out, and then the Nixon era comes, and there's the Vietnam War, and so there's a lot of pressure, and Nixon's trying to cut funding. And so this one senator was like, he had made up his mind, he'd heard everyone's cases, and he was like, I'm not going to support public television, I think it's like bogus. And Fred comes in and like
Is Fred Mr. Rogers?
Mr. Okay. Fred Rogers.
I'm well in my education on
Well, Stanek was like, why do you keep calling him by his first name? I'm like, we're on a first name basis.
Fred.
He's my bro. But I mean, I did, like, my grandpa died when I was 3, so I very much viewed, at that point, he was, he was older, so I very much viewed him as a grandfather figure. Because my other grandpa lived far away. I shipped him with my grandma. That's how far we went. Like, it was bad. But he comes in and he makes a case for public television. And a big thing for Fred was that a lot of other children's programs were more violent. And he just felt like that wasn't something we should do. And he really advocated for world peace and explaining to children how to deal with their emotions and how to explain these really tough concepts like assassination and world wars. And he covered the Kennedy assassination. He was ready to retire, and he'd heard about kids who were jumping off buildings from Superman and injuring themselves, so he comes out of retirement and is like, started doing like series on like, divorce and mourning and death and just really deep stuff that he's dealing with.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, he also did puppetry. So a big part of what he did was he expressed the feelings through the puppets to the kids. And so he was able to really access like a whole other level of the child's psyche. But he was on the ground floor of like a lot of the people in Boston who were exploring early childhood education. Yeah. And again, this is all in the documentary called Won't You Be My Neighbor? So that's what we watched last night. So, but I mean, in that sense, it's like he helped kind of lay the groundwork for what educational programming should look like. I think at least for public television in America, at least. I don't know about everywhere else in the world. But, so in that sense, like the structure. But anyway. Yeah.
That was pretty solid stuff. Definitely big recommend on that documentary
10 out of 10.
If you get a chance.
And the movie that's coming out, I don't know if you guys have seen the trailer for that. It's about a person that does I think it's a profile, not an in-depth.
Yeah, I don't really know much about it.
So it's about a reporter that's like, or a journalist who's doing a profile on Mr. Rogers. So it's a different angle.
Yeah.
So if you watch the documentary first, you have a nice
solid
groundwork. Context,
Yeah.
and you know how I feel about context. And then you can go into the movie and be like, oh, I know all these things about Fred already.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay, are we also required to call him Fred after we watch the documentary? Like, we'll be so familiar with him?
Well, you kind of know him personally after the documentary.
Thing for you?
Yeah. No, I just started
life.
doing it one day. You know, Bob Ross, Fred Rogers.
Yeah, that's so funny.
They're my bros.
Yeah, because it was interesting watching last night. Really, like, threw me back to like being at my grandma's house when because I would stay with her a lot, and that's kind of the only like channel she really had, like PBS, you know.
Yes.
And so it would just idly be on, and I just end up watching like all these shows. I mean, yeah, Mr. Rogers, of course, like Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Clifford.
Sagwa, like the Chinese cats.
Oh, yeah, that was what that was called. That was
goodness.
always on Sunday mornings right before I was going to church.
Cyber Chase.
Cyber Chase went hard.
Jams. Yeah,
Cyber Chase went crazy.
Yeah. On the way in as I was kind of on the way out.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And it was about math, so I was not. I'm like, you're trying to make math cool. Stop trying to make math.
That's crazy.
Stop trying to make fetch a thing. It's not.
Y'all like 4 or 5, probably maybe even 6 years older than me, which is like, I never even heard of Mr. Rogers until a few years ago. And it's like you guys grew up on a completely different set of shows and stuff. It's wild.
Yeah, and I think it's like everyone has their thing that they value and is legendary to them. But I think if you were to examine like
and I
public television at all, you should definitely look at what he did.
Yeah.
But if you're not like gonna do any of that,
and
it doesn't matter.
I kind of break up like my childhood into like segments a little bit where I'm nostalgic for different periods of when I was a child, I guess. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like yesterday I was walking into school and I smelled like the leaves, and it instantly took me back to like making leaf piles and jumping in them. So
getting all like scratched up, and like this is not nearly as cool as they make it on TV.
Man. My friend always made us. She was like my older sister. She's like probably 10 years older than me. So she would go out with us when we would play in the leaves. Me and a neighbor kid, we'd meet like halfway. And she would always make us pick out all the sticks so that we didn't like poke our eyeballs. Because I'd be like, why do we have to pick out all the sticks, Whitney? And she'd be like, so you don't lose an eyeball, okay? Like, sorry, I'm just trying to be a good person.
But yeah, that's I think that about sums it up, at least for my take on it.
Well, I kind of gave my hot take too.
Yeah.
Or something. What would you guys say, like, kind of segueing from kid shows? I feel like that kind of coincides with you talking to kids about them in school, but even like neighborhoods growing up. Because I actually didn't grow up in a neighborhood, so Mr. Rogers was nostalgic because I could be like, this is what a neighborhood's like, but I have no idea. Well, I grew up in the country, so.
Yeah, because I mean, even though I kind of did grow up in a couple, but like I moved so much. Yeah. I didn't really develop a lot of like neighborhood, kind of things. But I don't know about you guys, maybe.
Yeah, I lived in a townhouse till I was about 4-ish, 4.5. And the only thing I remember is jumping off the top of my mom's car into a snow pile, and then 2 doors down, there were some kids who we used to play with, me and my older sister, and they had bunk beds. That was the coolest thing of all time.
Yes, I remember bunk beds being so cool.
Yeah.
And I'm actually probably gonna head out because I've got an exam in less than 4 minutes. Like 4 minutes now. So I'm gonna go. Get my mind right for that. But
all right.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for your hot takes, Brayden.
Yeah. I mean, I think this might be a good point to wrap it up. We've been going for like 30 minutes or so.
Taylor,
but yeah,
final thoughts for us, Taylor.
Yeah, final thoughts. I like grew up in like neighborhoods with like old people all around me.
Ooh, that's a mood.
So like it was only like I'd get like lots of cookies and things. and, like, nice baked goods, like sweaters knitted for me.
Quality.
Yeah, really great. But like as far as like I would only really get to see like kids like obviously at school, but like in the summer like I would like not see children for like a really long time. So I don't know. I don't really have much of a take on neighborhoods.
I guess before, I actually just remembered before, like, because since I did move a lot, but since my mom did gymnastics and I was always there helping her and whatnot, a lot of like the students, like brothers or like friends, would like come in, like, because we would be hanging out in like an office or something because we were so young. I didn't really like help like teach yet. That was was more of a later thing. But a lot of them would come in and we would either just go outside the building or just mess around. So that's kind of how I met some people. But
and I had neighbor kids around, but like my neighbor was named Bo and he lived across so my driveway was like a quarter of a mile long. And then there was the county road. And then
the quarter mile long driveway.
I felt like it was long as a kid.
I don't know measurements.
What? Oh no, it's like I don't know. I felt like it was long. If you you're thinking like a mile is So like a mile would be from like...
It's like 2,000 something feet, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a solid driveway.
Yeah. I mean, and we shared it with our neighbors, so it would tee off and go down to their house, which was even further.
That's so
yeah.
cute.
So I would ride my bike down to my neighbors and then across the street to Bo's house, and he had like a paved asphalt driveway, and he had like all the fancy toys. Yeah. So
rich kid.
Yeah. So Bo and I would like hang out a lot, but we would every fall we would meet in the middle, kind of at the end of my driveway, and on at the end across the road from his house, in our neighbor's front yard, and they had all these trees, and so there's like an abundance. And Ohio in the fall is nice because we've got lots of maples and like an abundance of really pretty leaves.
Yeah.
So we would just rake them all up and make like leaf forts. And
jeez.
Yeah, it was quite the endeavor. Nice. And then we would jump in the piles.
In Minnesota, we have like pine trees, which is not nearly as fun to jump into.
Yeah,
than leaves.
Even like Missouri, as much as like there's some really pretty colors here, but there's just not the quality foliage that you need for like 10 like quality leaf piles. So I don't know, but that's just perks of growing up near maple trees and stuff. So
exactly.
But yeah, and you lived in Florida. You said only like 9 months.
9 months.
It wasn't so most of your life was in Missouri.
Most Missouri.
Okay.
Yeah. Since like 2nd grade to now. I mean,
that's
kind of
a pretty solid amount of time.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of similarities to like where I grew up to where I live now. Like honestly, because it's still like a same rural vibe.
Same vibe. Yeah.
For sure. So anyway, I think with that we'll wrap it up. Having had our final takes there. So thanks so much for tuning in to KCC's podcast. I'm not sure what we're talking about next week, but I'm excited to keep sharing this journey with you where we talk about different things. If you guys have things you want to recommend for us to talk to, definitely shoot us a message on our social media and we can consider that. So, all right. Thanks so much. Bye.